Hello everyone, my name is Brant Kudrowski and this Organic Chemistry Lab video covers an Alkane Conformations experiment. This is part 2, modeling butanes. In this video we'll learn to use a computer program called Cache to model alkane conformations. We'll study some substituted butanes in this video, and then in the following video we'll look at some substituted cyclohexanes. We'll use the program to build the structures, optimize the structures by adjusting bond angles and bond lengths, and then calculate the energies of some conformations. The assignment for this experiment involves completing some worksheets by drawing in structures, reporting energies, and answering some questions about the conformations. In the previous video in this series, I introduced conformational analysis, drawing Newman projections, chair conformations, and some sources of strain. I also introduced computational chemistry and the Cache program, and explained a little bit about how it works. If you haven't had a chance to check out that video yet, you definitely should before you proceed with this one. To launch the Cache program, find the icon on the desktop called Workspace and double-click. Two windows will appear. One is the Cache program and the other one is something called a Calculation Manager. You need to leave Calculation Manager open the whole time or the program will stop working. I'll start by going over some of the tools in Cache that you'll use frequently. The first one is the New button. Press this button to start drawing a new molecule and start doing new calculations. The next important button is the Select tool. Press this button and then left-click and drag with the mouse to select atoms. Next up is the Draw tool, which is used to draw atoms with left-clicking. Then there's the Rotate Molecule button, which allows you to rotate the entire molecule in three-dimensional space. Pressing the Hand tool allows you to grab a molecule and move it around the screen. The Magnifying Glass is a Zoom tool. Left-click and drag up and down to make the molecule smaller or larger. The Adjust menu up top is used to change dihedral angle properties. The Beautify menu makes molecules beautiful by adding in any missing hydrogens and optimizing their bond angles and bond lengths. Finally, the Experiment button is used to start a calculation on a molecule. I'll demonstrate some of these tools by drawing a molecule of ethane. I'll start by clicking on the Drawing tool, then I'll mouse up to the atom selection box and select carbon. Tetrahedral sp3 hybridized carbon is selected by default, but if you needed some other type of hybridization, you could select it here. Now when I left-click in the screen, I'll lay down a carbon atom. If I left-click and drag and then drop, it draws another carbon atom connected to the first. There are no hydrogens attached to these carbons yet, it's just a carbon skeleton. To add hydrogens, I first need to select the entire molecule. Right now, only the right carbon is selected, and I can tell because it's dark and the left carbon is grayed out. To select the entire molecule, I'll click on the Select tool and then click any empty spot on the screen. Both carbons are now dark gray, so I know they're both selected. Now I'll select the Beautify menu and click Comprehensive. This adds in hydrogens and fixes all the bond angles and bond lengths. It usually gives the molecule in its lowest energy conformation. Here it's the Staggered conformation of ethane. Now I'll move the molecule to the center of the screen by selecting the Hand tool, left-clicking and dragging, and dropping to release the molecule. If I wanted to make this molecule bigger or smaller, I could click the magnifying glass and then drag up or down to make it larger or smaller. Now I'm going to click on the Rotate button to rotate the molecule in three-dimensional space. Imagine that the molecule is in a giant hamster ball and you're grabbing it and rotating it here by left-clicking and dragging either to the left or to the right or up or down to rotate that globe. It's oftentimes important to rotate the molecule so that you can see rear hydrogens behind the front hydrogens, or to rotate it into a Newman Projection type conformation or a chair conformation to enable you to see the conformations better. Here I'm viewing ethane down the carbon-carbon bond, which enables you to see the interactions between the hydrogens on the front and back carbons. This is the perspective you'd want to rotate the molecule into if you were going to draw a Newman projection of it. Now we'll move on and study the conformations of butane. Click the New button to start a new molecule. I'll click on the Draw tool and then mouse up to the atom selection box to select carbon. The correct sp3 hybridization is selected by default, so I can go to the screen and click to draw a carbon atom. Then I'll left-click and drag and drop to lay down another carbon atom and continue the process to draw 4 carbons in a row bonded to each other. Notice that only the right carbon is selected at this point because it's the only dark gray atom. I'll need to select the entire molecule by clicking on the Select tool and then clicking anywhere in the screen. That selects the entire molecule and all the carbons turn dark gray. Now I'll click the Beautify menu and select Comprehensive to add in hydrogens and optimize all the bond angles and bond lengths. Right now, all of the carbons and hydrogens aren't clearly visible. Some atoms are obscured by others. So I'll click the Rotate tool and rotate the molecule so that I can clearly see the zigzagging carbon structure and all of the hydrogens in the front and the back. Now I'll press the Select key and select 4 carbons in a row to define a dihedral angle. I'll start by clicking on the leftmost carbon, then I'll press and hold the Shift button and click on the 2nd carbon, the 3rd carbon, and the 4th carbon of butane respectively. Next I'll press the Adjust menu and select Dihedral Angle. Make sure the Define Geometry label is selected and click on the Search button and change 24 to 72. This will ask the computer to search through conformations where it changes the dihedral angle by 5 degrees and then does a calculation. Then it'll graph those conformations and we can see the energy changes as the molecule rotates about the carbon-carbon bond. The blue lines in the 180 degrees here is marking the dihedral angle. Next, I want to select the entire molecule by clicking the Select tool and clicking anywhere on the screen. And now all of the atoms are selected. Now I'm going to ask the computer to show me those conformations as it turns around the central carbon-carbon bond. I'll hit Adjust and then click Animate Geometry label. I'll left-click and move the dialog box out of the way so that we can see the molecule rotating. Then I'll hit the play button to get the animation started. You can see here the molecule turning around the carbon-carbon bond in increments of 5 degrees. Now I'll hit Stop. We can select individual conformations if we want by clicking on the Conformation box. Now I'll hit Done to exit this menu. Now I'll rotate the molecule to change the perspective to look down the central carbon-carbon bond of butane. Again, I'll click on the Adjust menu and I'll select Animate Geometry label. When I hit the play button to get the animation started, we'll be able to see butane cycling through all of its different conformations about its carbon-carbon bond. Next, I'll have the program calculate the energies of all of these different conformations and then graph the energies versus dihedral angle. I'll do this by clicking on the Experiment menu and selecting New, at which time the program prompts me to save the file. I'll select Yes, and give it a descriptive name so that I can recognize it later. It's also helpful to remember where you're saving your file. I'm saving this file on the desktop. I'll call this Butane. When I click the Save button, a dialog box comes up with several options. In the Property of box, select Chemical Sample Conformations, and in the Property box, select Optimized Map. In the Using window, select Fastest Procedure, which is the default. Then hit Start. 2 windows will appear. On the left is an energy level diagram that graphs energy versus dihedral angle, and on the right is the structure of the butane molecule. In the lower left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a menu that says Dihedral Angle 1. We're going to change that to Energy. Now we'll move over to the menu in the lower right that says Dihedral Angle 1. When we click the arrows up and down here, we'll affect the dihedral angle of the butane molecule and we'll see the energy on the energy graph, which is represented by a gray circle. I'll click the arrows to cycle through all the different conformations of butane. The conformations are going up and down in energy as strain increases or decreases. The dihedral angle here runs from -180 to +180 degrees, which gives a full turn around the circle. Now I'm rotating the molecule to put it into a conformation where we're looking down the bond between the central carbon atom of butane. This will allow us to see the strain interactions between groups on the front carbon and the back carbon better. This perspective will also allow us to draw Newman projections for the various conformations. On the first page of the assignment for this experiment, you'll be graphing the energy level diagram with the peaks and the valleys labeled with letters A through F. Then you'll draw the Newman projection that corresponds to each of the structures represented by these letters, and record the energy of each. Finally, you'll log the different kinds of interactions that are generating strain in the conformation. For example, when hydrogens are eclipsing hydrogens, you'll note that. When a methyl group is eclipsing a methyl group, you'll note that as well. We'll go through butane as an example. Here's the first question of the assignment that asks about the conformations of butane. You'll draw the Newman projections that correspond to points A through F on the graph in this column. You'll list the energy of each conformation in this column, and you'll log the different kinds of interactions present in the conformation in this column. I'll explain these as we go through the butane example. We'll start with point A on the graph, which is the conformation that's currently selected. I'll draw the Newman projection in the appropriate box and record the energy in the box over here on the right. The middle box lists strain-inducing interactions, and for this structure there aren't any. It's been filled in for you with zeros, but other structures will have more of these. We'll discuss them as we go through the butane example. Now I'm going to click the angle selector to get to structure B on the graph, which is an energy maximum. The dihedral angle between the methyl groups at this point is 120 degrees. Now you can draw in the Newman projection for structure B and list its energy, which is 7.282 kilocalories per mole. Now let's go over these strain-inducing interactions that are listed in the middle box. There are no Gauss interactions in this molecule. I'll explain what those are in structure C. There is one hydrogen-hydrogen eclipsing interaction shown here, so draw a 1 on this line to indicate that there's one of those. There are 2 methyl hydrogen eclipsing interactions in this conformation that are indicated with the highlighted regions. These cause more strain than hydrogen-hydrogen eclipsing because methyl is larger. Finally, there are no methyl-methyl eclipsing interactions in structure B. We'll see that in structure D. Now I'll adjust the angle again to get to structure C. The dihedral angle between the methyl groups in structure C is 60 degrees. This is called a Gauss interaction between the methyl groups. It's not an eclipsing conformation, but there is steric strain associated with the methyl groups getting close together. You can fill out the row for structure C in your assignment now with the information that's on the screen. Now I'll continue to adjust the dihedral angle to get to structure D with a dihedral angle of 0 between the 2 methyl groups. This structure is very high in energy because it has the 2 large methyl groups eclipsing each other. It also has 2 hydrogen-hydrogen eclipsing interactions, which are also high energy, but not nearly as high as the methyls eclipsing. Now you can fill in the row in your assignment for structure D. Now I'll adjust the dihedral angle to get to structure E. You can pause the video here to get your information for row E. And then I'll adjust the angle to get to structure F. And I'll pause the rotation for you to get your data for entry F. Then as we advance the angle further, we end up going 360 degrees total, and we're back at structure A where we started. Now I'll go through and draw 2-methylbutane, and we'll do the same sort of analysis with it as we did with butane. Here I'm drawing the 4-carbon chain of butane, and I'll mouse back over one of the carbons, left click and drag to introduce a branch. Now I have the skeleton of 2-methylbutane. Now I'll select the entire molecule in Beautify Comprehensive to put in all of the hydrogens. I'm rotating the molecule now so that we can see all of the atoms, and in particular the carbon skeleton. Now I'll select 4 carbons in a row to define the dihedral angle. I'll left click on one, hold shift, and left click on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th carbons to define the dihedral angle. Now I'll click the Adjust menu and Define Geometry label. I'll click Adjust again and select Dihedral Angle, and I'll search through 72 steps like we did with the butane example, and hit OK. As before, I need to select the entire molecule, and then I can hit Adjust and Animate Geometry label to see the rotation about the central carbon-carbon bond of the 2-methylbutane molecule. I'll stop that and rotate it into a conformation that allows us to see the Newman projection representation of this molecule. Again, I'll press the Adjust button and select Animate Geometry label. I'll move this dialog box out of the way, and then I'll hit the Play button to show the various conformations of 2-methylbutane. In the next step, I'm going to ask the program to calculate the energies of these conformations and graph them, as we did before with butane. I'll press the Experiment button and select New. I'll say yes to saving the file, and I'll give it a name I can remember. In this case, I'll call it 2-methylbutane. When I press Save, the dialog box for the experiment comes up. In the Property of box, I'll select Chemical Sample Conformations, and in the Property map, I'll select Optimize Map. Then I'll hit Start. I'll rotate the structure in the right-hand window to put it into a perspective that makes it easy to see Newman projections. Then I'll mouse over to the menu in the lower left-hand corner and change that menu option from Dihedral Angle 1 to Energy, like we did with butane. Now we're ready to fill out page 2 of the assignment for this lab experiment, which I'm showing here. You'll need to sketch the energy level diagram from the computer program in the box in the upper right of the page, and label the valleys and the peaks with letters A through F. Then you'll need to fill out the table where you list Newman projections for each of these structures, their energies, and report the number of methyl-methyl Gauss interactions, hydrogen-hydrogen eclipsing interactions, methyl-hydrogen eclipsing interactions, and methyl-methyl eclipsing interactions in each one of the structures in the middle column. I'll change the dihedral angle of the structure to cycle through the various conformations of 2-methylbutane, and you'll want to pause the video at various points to collect information on each of the structures A through F. With the information in this video, you can fill out the table and complete this part of the assignment. I'll start adjusting the dihedral angle now. This completes our analysis of butane isomers. In the next video, we'll take a look at cyclohexane conformations. If you found this video useful, check out the next one in the series or watch the prior video, and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. My name is Brant Kudrowski. Thanks for watching.